Well, thank you for seeing us today. First of all, welcome to the city and to your new post, correct? How long has it been since you took the job, may I ask?
My first day was May the 12th.
All right. So our intention here, yes, is to learn what a program director does, what the CPRB does, and as I was reading and following about things, there's some changes perhaps, one of them being the fact that we're in an office now and such. So for those who may have not heard about it before, can you just summarize what a community police review board does?
Absolutely. So the CPRB for the City of Albany is the repository for all complaints related to the Albany Police Department. Complaints can be filed with our board through the office or mail or through our website or with the police department itself. Those reports come to us. Our membership of the board, which consists of 9 volunteer positions, review those complaints and determine whether or not they want to investigate the complaint, monitor the complaint, or allow APD to handle the complaint in full. At the conclusion of all misconduct complaints through the OPS, the Office of Professional Standards at APD, we receive a preliminary report that our members then review, and if it is a complaint that they had flagged or categorized for investigation or monitoring, they will then review the preliminary report and weigh in whether or not we agree with the findings or if they agree with the findings of the police department. Once they make that decision, it's held at a public meeting with public votes. We then communicate to the police department our recommended outcomes, and the final arbiter of discipline, which is the chief of police, will determine whether or not which discipline to enter.
Mm-hmm. And did I hear correctly, Lieutenant Reddy, is that his name, or Reedy? But he was saying that mediation is something that is being used has shown to be effective. Or can you speak to how mediation works?
So we're actually in the process of developing the mediation program. It is not currently up and running yet. My understanding is historically there was a mediation program, but it kind of fell to the wayside for various reasons. Right now, the board has selected 2 mediators, and we're in the process of developing space and working with OPS to determine good cases to send through mediation so we can test the system to make sure it works and functions as designed.
Right. Just so folks understand, mediation meaning a third impartial party, or how would you describe that third mediator? Who would they be?
So the mediators that that have been selected are independent to the city. They are independent neutral arbiters. Their whole goal is to get a common understanding between the police officer and the citizen filing their complaint and ultimately reach a resolution. There's significant evidence to indicate that the vast majority of police complaints are rooted in miscommunication or misunderstandings, where mediation may be best suited to answer those questions and help bridge the gap of misunderstanding.
I do want to ask you, I know you just got here. What would you say so far, is that most of the complaints that you've heard thus far are misunderstandings, like you say, or how would you describe thus far? Again, I don't know how far your second month. You said May you got here?
Correct.
So, but yes, but actually first, let me ask you this. Tell me more about the program director, actually. So we understand what the CPRB does and how the process works. Speak to me a little bit about the role of the program director so folks understand.
Okay, so as members of the community may realize or may not know, historically the CPRB has been ran out of the Albany Law School and the Government Law Center. In January of this year, the board was brought fully under the government umbrella of the city, directly under the Common Council. I, as the program director, am an employee that was hired by the Common Council to manage the day-to-day operations of the board and to assist the board membership in accomplishing the mission of the board, which is to facilitate better communication and relationships with the community, while also reviewing and providing a community voice during the disciplinary process with APD.
And I know this is also explained on the website, but could you summarize why was the board, the CPRB, integrated into the, as you say, the umbrella of and under the Common Council? Because it's an independent oversight agency. So now that it's part of the, or under the umbrella of the government, could you speak to that, and does that create any sort of conflict?
I'm not exactly sure the history of why all the things changed, being new myself. My understanding is why it was brought in to the city government in part was because the contract provider, the law school, declined to continue providing the service. And they were looking for a new entity, and they were having difficulties identifying that entity. Coming from the police oversight industry, there are definite benefits to the oversight entity being part of the city government, there are also hurdles and challenges to that as well. I'm a firm believer that oversight is rooted in each individual community and what each individual community needs. So I, like the board and the city, we're navigating this together, this transition. And we're trying to figure out if this transition is in the best interest of the board, the police department, and the community, or is this a waypoint to get to where we need to be for the best board or the best oversight program we can develop in the city.
Understood. So, and I want to go over any other changes that I may be leaving out, because again, I'm also learning it. So we have a new program director, new office space, correct? How much staff do you have here?
Currently, it's myself and one other employee.
Okay. So you got the new office space, new director, you have an employee. Possibly the mediation will move forward. That's something that's in the works. What else should folks know, or again, you just got here, or what are some of the things that you would like to see implemented, or tell us about how you see the future here?
Well, so my first task as program director is to, one, learn the system and identify areas of improvement, and that's currently what the stage I'm in. In addition to that, I want to make sure that we're messaging to the community that we have a new office space at 175 Central Avenue, and that we're no longer operating out of the law school. That also involves updating all of our forms and public-facing materials like our website to ensure that all the proper contact information is available. And that's something that I've been working on for the past month as well.
And there's multiple ways to get in touch, of course. Website, email, to submit a complaint. Can folks walk in, or do you have to set up an appointment here, or to this space?
No, individuals can come to the office. All of our complaints, if you do come to our office, are going to have to be in writing, so there will be a form that you have to fill out. It's a form that's available on our website. The easiest way to file a complaint for everybody involved is to go to the website and fill out the web form. And it'll tell you exactly what it's looking for. And the one thing that I always encourage complainants to do when they file complaints is provide as much detail as possible. The more detail provided, the easier it is for us to identify the incident and to fully investigate the interaction or the complaint.
Understood. I know you may not have the data right in front of you, and again, maybe we can get it later, but I was wondering myself, reading the history. So it was founded in the year 2000, if I'm reading that right, the CPRB. So it's been around for a while, right?
A version of this.
A version.
Yes.
Some folks might think it's a recent creation, but actually it's 25 years. Since it's been around, do we know how, if complaints against police, have they gone up or down, or do we keep track of that per year? I know you may not have that.
I do not have that information. My understanding is that regular quarterly reports or annual reports were issued by the board to both the Common Council and the Mayor's office that would contain that data. I do not have that data on hand, and I do not know it off the top of my head. That is definitely something that we can look into if you're interested in getting that. And I will have to work with my counterparts to get that done.
That's not understood. Again, I know sometimes you have to file a Freedom of Information request, and again, it's not just data that's just readily. But I was just wondering myself, because some folks might be wondering, but also the numbers don't necessarily paint the full picture anyway. If there are more complaints, that could mean folks coming forward, or again, it's hard to gauge that, right? As far as complaints going up or down, you said you have history in this business, in this industry. Can you talk to me about that, like how tracking complaints and whether they're going up or down, and whether the program is having an effect?
So the volume or the number of individual complaints is not always a true indicator of performance of the department. There will be instances in which we get a large volume of complaints for various reasons that have nothing to do with the performance of the department itself. What is the key factor is the outcome of those complaints. What are the findings of the alleged misconduct? And the goal ultimately is to have fewer sustained violations, which means misconduct occurred, over time. And as that works and as the program works and builds upon itself, those sustained findings should be reducing over time, as well as community relationships between the police department and civilians should be increasing. And ultimately, as I said in the board meeting, my firm belief is that if we get this program right, we make everybody's lives better. We make the community's lives better. We make the police officers' lives better. We make their jobs easier. We make everything safer. because when a community trusts its law enforcement agency, it's more apt to assist the law enforcement agency in resolving criminal issues and resolving lifestyle concerns such as, abandoned properties or narcotics activity or things like that.
And again, speaking from your experience over the years, so would you agree then, as the lieutenant said, so the majority of the complaints, they do stem again from a misunderstanding of perhaps the procedure that officers have to follow, or like you said, or how would you describe the most common type of complaints that you have seen over your years in this industry?
So not speaking to complaints here in the city of Albany because I don't have enough information about that, but in my experience in doing this type of work, coming from a very large city, the vast majority of complaints that are received are rooted in either a misunderstanding on the officer's part or a misunderstanding on the community member's part or both in the instance when they're trying to communicate and interact with each other. Sometimes that is rooted in a lack of understanding of policies and procedures of law enforcement. Sometimes that's a literal language barrier, and sometimes it is rooted in the fact that most people are interacting with the police when they're a very stressful situation. So in hindsight, it's easier to sometimes understand where those misunderstandings came from. In addition to that, in instances where there is actual misconduct that is occurring, in my experience in doing this job, the vast majority of the time it's rooted in some form of a mistake or an error. It is not intentional. Now, does that mean that there is no intentional misconduct? Absolutely not. There is definitely intentional misconduct, and that is, in my opinion, the most egregious misconduct, because that's an indication that the individual engaging in that misconduct knew what they were doing should not happen, but still elected to do it anyways. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest concern to me.
Last question, I promise. Just a little more about your background, because I didn't see your resume. Maybe it's available. But where did you work prior, if you can say? Like you said, you worked in another big city, or what would you like folks to know about you as they get to know you?
Absolutely. So the position I held specifically before this was in the city of Chicago at the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. I was a supervising investigator there. I was there for a little bit over 7 years. I got hired in 2017 as an investigator and progressed up to becoming a supervising investigator, in which I would review our investigative reports and our investigative recommendations, as well as assist staff in accomplishing their mission of conducting investigations and identifying potential misconduct. And then prior to that, I was in law school, and I obtained a law degree from the University of Florida. And then prior to that, I was a deputy in the Central Florida area for a little over 6 years.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Did I leave anything out? Again, my goal was just and our goal for the viewers to understand what the CPRB does, how folks can utilize it if they need to, what the goal here is, what some of the recent changes have been, because yes, it has been described as a transition period. May I ask, when was the last, has this position been vacant for a while? When was the prior director, when did they depart?
My understanding was it was sometime towards the middle or the end of last year. I don't know exactly.
Not that too long ago. All right, any other changes, again, that people should know about, or any other points you want to underline about the mission here as you get going on this new task for you and this new chapter?
So I think the biggest mission is for myself, the staff that I will eventually be bringing on board, and the board membership to approach all of our cases in a neutral, unbiased manner to ensure that both the citizen and the police officer are heard throughout the course of the investigation and are rendered an objective opinion on the outcome. In terms of what I hope to accomplish in the future, I hope to increase the effectiveness of the board's voice during the police department's disciplinary process. There are definitely timeframes that exist that potentially can cause a hindrance to that, but the goal is to be able to work within those timeframes that are established both by law and or collective bargaining agreements or any other contractual rights that police officers may have.
Okay. All right. If that's it, I thank you for your time because you're very busy. And yeah, I will try to post the full interview on the website if that's all right.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Garrett.